Welcome to Too Deep Hokies Under the Influence, a Sons of Saturday podcast brought to you by Jack and Coke. I'm your host, Pete B, and I've got my co-host here, Sam Jesse. Sam, how you feeling tonight?
It's been a week, dude. It has been a week.
Busy week. Lots of things going on. And there was a big result last night, Sam, in the college football playoff rankings. Before we get to that, can you give us a cheers?
My cheers is to something that the legendary Frank Beamer would say very often. It's never as good as it seems, and it's never as bad as it seems.
Cheers to that. And that'll work. That'll work. Yes, the rankings came out last night, right as a lot of the first results of the election were being reported. And I was dialed into those rankings, Sam. It turned out not many changes from the AP poll, especially inside the top 15. It was pretty similar. You had Oregon at number 1, Ohio State at 2, Georgia, Miami at 4, Texas, Penn State, Tennessee, and Indiana comes in at number 8, which means they would be in the playoff if it ended today. BYU was the 9 in the rankings, which means they would be the 4 spot in the playoff. And then Boise would have been the 12 seed. So that's kind of how it played out, which isn't so much different than what we saw in the AP poll.
Yeah, I think they're pretty determined to have the Big 12 team in the 4 spot. It seems like even if they go undefeated, that's kind of what that told me. And that the ACC champion is playing for that 3rd spot, unless a 2-loss Clemson were to be able to find their way to winning in Charlotte. So that's the biggest takeaway for me.
Or a 13-0 Miami and a 2-loss SEC champ or something like that.
Yeah, it would, barring something weird.
Yeah.
It's Big 10, SEC, ACC, Big 12.
Yeah. All right. Depth chart injury update. And there's a bunch of things here. We didn't think there was so much last week, and then we got to the game and we didn't have our 2 star players. Well, they are both listed as questionable now. We thought they were probable last week. They are now questionable for Clemson, but they practiced today. That was the reporting from Colby.
Yeah, I think there is a bit of classic college football paranoia into the way Virginia Tech has dealt with injuries, specifically the injuries last week. And clearly Drones and Tuten are pretty beat up. Those are pretty tough guys. So if they're not playing, it's because they would not help the team to that point. It's not because they just don't want to play or don't feel like it. So you hope those guys are ready to go at 100% against Clemson. That's really all you can do is hope for it at this point.
Yeah, and I thought they tried very hard to not let anyone know what was going on, because both of the guys were out there in warmups. Drones was fully padded up. And that picture that you talked about, and I was like, oh, he was at practice. He didn't have a brace on. And then it came out like that picture was from the summertime of Tuten at practice. And it's like they put that out there. Yeah. And to me, it was just like, is that a sign that our coaches like aren't seeing the forest for the trees? Like
it's a bit of I have thought this during the entire time that this, I hate calling it regime because that's such a loaded word. During the whole time that this era of Virginia Tech football under Brent Pry has been here, I think there is a big focus on social media and what is put out there and what is talked about the team, and the pictures that are put out there is very calculated. That can be really good. You want them thinking about that stuff, but it can also be like, why are we spending our effort with this? Right? Like Fran Brown wasn't scrolling through Virginia Tech's Twitter looking at pictures to figure out who to prep for.
Probably not. All you have to do is ask someone in Vegas and they'll tell you, or
pay
$100 to a staffer to figure it out. Like it's annoying to me because it seems like that's like focus on winning the game. Like they probably know what you think they don't know.
Yeah. And how much, I mean, like, how many reps did you take from the guys who were going to end up playing in the game? Pre-game practice, like how did you prepare for it? And it's also like Syracuse isn't going to be like, oh, Tuten's not in there. I guess we don't have to tackle the running back.
I know. It's because the schemes are generally the same. And to me, it's very like Fuente not letting there be a spring game or not letting people see practice. It's like, dude, you are focused on the wrong thing here. Just practice and get your stuff right. And maybe we wouldn't have had a meltdown, because if I didn't say it off the top, guys, Virginia Tech lost to Syracuse 38-31 in overtime. Sam and I we're okay. We did our CFB Monday. We did our VT corner, and we got a lot of things off our chest with Robert Irby, and Herb had some good perspective on it. We're going to go into it a little bit more tonight, and then we'll do Clemson. But it was a frustrating result, and to not have our 2-star players was frustrating, but the team, to their credit on offense especially, played very well. To finish out the injury update, Mansour, questionable for this week. He had to leave the game with an injury. I think he'll probably play, but not certain. Stephen Gosnell had to leave with an injury, had a great game, really a great half. He was awesome. And he'll probably tough it out and play, but again, on the injury report, so to speak. And Brumfield was on there, and Leif Ganem still coming back and may be back. So that's what I had to clear out. I'm hopeful about Mansour and Gosnell, though.
Yeah, you have to be. I mean, Mansour is a guy you have to have out there. Dante Lovett has played very well this year, but Mansour, his ceiling is so high as a player, right? And so you need him out there. Brumfield, I think, helps you with that linebacker rotation. Keller has been playing good. I don't think he had a great game against Syracuse, but you definitely want to keep that rotation in the defensive front seven healthy.
Yeah. And did you see the Bleacher Report thing about Mansour?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen him as high as 16. That'd be really high.
To clarify, he was mocked as number 16 overall in the NFL draft.
Yeah. I mean, he has a lot of, again, his ceiling is very high. He and Dorian Strong have very, very high ceilings as prospects. So we'll see as we end out this season, get to combine season and stuff like that. We'll see where they fall.
Pick'em leaders. Sean D08 is still in first, NRV Tigers in second, and M Bagel picking up third place right now. And you guys are doing great. Deep Fried Hokie, though, made a charge. He went 10-0 this past weekend. So good job on you, Deep Fried Hokie. That's pretty awesome. I did not have a great week picking games. And if you listened to the end of our podcast last week, I think I picked 1 out of 4 right on there, and Sam picked 1 out of 4 right on there. So it was my worst week of the season by a lot. In my one pick'em that I do pretty religiously. So I'm trying to get back on track. I'm going for more of a gut feel than an over analyzing feel. And maybe that's something that our coaches will subscribe to too. Like, don't overthink things.
Yeah.
Let's just get out there and play hard and win.
Yeah. Paralysis by analysis can be a real issue.
It really can. Make sure to like the video if you're watching on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. We are trying to get to 4,000 followers by the end of this season, or subscribers. So please subscribe and please like the video. Let's get into the game recap, Sam. We got up 14-0, and it surprised me very much. It was some nice drives by Schley, 14-3 at the half, 21-3 in the third. And just as quick as it felt like we were up, Syracuse came right back, and it only took 8 minutes of game time for them to grab the lead. They scored 21 unanswered. It was 24-21 Syracuse before we got back on the board with field goal and a touchdown. And we had the lead with 5 minutes left. Syracuse goes right down the field and ties it. Pride decides to go to OT. We fail to score. Syracuse wins 38-31. I heard this on TSL, and not that it was a secret, but I didn't think about it. We scored more points in the second half than we did the first half, and we still managed to lose this thing late. That's pretty crazy. And it's the 4th time this year that we've managed to essentially lose the game on the final possession. Rough stuff.
And how many times has it been in the last 3 years where in these close losses, all 11 of them, the defense has an opportunity to win the game with a stop and they fail.
Right.
It's happened 3 times this year. Happened against Miami, happened against Vanderbilt, happened this game against Syracuse. Happened multiple times in year 1. Happened multiple times.
I mean, it happened. You skipped Rutgers, but it happened there too.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I'm not going to put that on the. I'm not going to put that game on the defense as much. The offense was terrible, but this. I mean, this is shocking, even by Virginia Tech standards. That's to lose, to be up 21-3 with less than 10 minutes to go in the third, and to still score 10 points after that and lose is egregious, dysfunctional.
Like, it's hard to mess up that bad.
It is hard. Like, it is, we'll get into it, but like Virginia Tech had to do a lot of things wrong to put themselves in a position to screw this up. Yeah. And they somehow did it yet again.
All right. To set the tone for the rest of the recap, and just to give you an idea of what the fans were feeling, I'll play the voicemail, Sam.
I'm here in the Carrier Dome drinking some Blue Light. And you know what? I don't know what ACC stands for, but it don't stand for accountability. Fire these refs into the sun.
What is up with these ACC refs this year? 18 seconds and it goes down to 7 and the clock's running before the ball snaps? This is unbelievable. I can't believe this.
How on earth do we not at least get it back to 12 seconds like the original play was? I don't care about all 18 seconds. 12 seconds was fine with me. What are we doing?
Disappointing game. Shocking that we were in that one, without our starting quarterback and starting running back. But, it really took the refs to really put us away.
I mean, what are we all watching?
I think people are a little more upset than they should be.
If we lose by 3 points or less, I'm going to stick my head in the drywall and leave it there.
I mean, this is absolutely crazy.
There's always chaos in the Dome. This game's no exception. I don't know what I'm looking at. This game has been wild as hell. And without a few of those calls going our way, it might be a little bit better,
I think we all knew it was coming, but this was just a very weird way for it to come.
I don't know what that was, but that was bullshit. I don't know what's in the game, but that was dumb decisions by coaches and by Schley. And I thought the offense was honestly not bad without Drones and Tuten.
Regardless, Colin Schley looks good.
Backup quarterback, although Schley was slinging it. We love Schley now, apparently. Backup and third string running back, and Malachi did as good as he could, and Tony was pretty stellar. We made the best of it.
But just couldn't get it done. The defense was gassed in that second half.
Well, I want to throw up, and I can't tell if it's all this leftover Halloween candy or continuing to watch Virginia Tech blow second half leads.
Brent Pry, he's got to go.
Please leave Witt, Babcock, and the entire Virginia Tech coaching staff on the tarmac in Syracuse, New York.
Pete, Sam, just kill me.
Hey, if there was an award for being the most almost winning team, we'd be absolutely fucking crushing it.
We shouldn't even have been in this game not having our starting running back, starting quarterback in this game. The fact that we even made it competitive is a miracle in and of itself. The fact that the defense had a meltdown in the second half is kind of moot.
If you told me beforehand that Tuten and Jones are both going to be out for the game, I would have taken a close game. But, what happened between the first half and the second half?
They were on the field the entire time because we had a crew in there playing offense that doesn't necessarily practice together. So that Colin Schley played as good as he probably could. Malachi Thomas did what he could. It's not the same.
It's just been a crazy 2024. The 4 losses have been ridiculous. 2 games we've ended with Schley having the ball in overtime as a loss. That's crazy.
Had a day to sit on it. We did what we could. Still squandered at the end, which sucks, but what you gonna do?
Let's beat Clemson. We got a good team. We just need to just keep pushing forward. We can do it.
All right. A lot of calls, as you heard. It wasn't a record. I think Miami still has the record from earlier this year, but we were right there. Thank you to everyone that called in. It was funny listening to that, Sam, because there was a lot of people upset. We got to fire Brent Pry. We got, I don't know what's going on with the refs. A lot of ref commentary throughout the calls.
Yeah.
But there was also we shouldn't have even been in the game. We were lucky to be in the game. There was a lot of that. So it kind of walked the line. People were very much well, we were lucky to be in the game, but it still is ridiculous that we lost. And that's, that does kind of sum it up. Am I right?
Yeah, it does. It does. And I don't want to use the word lucky for that, right? Colin Schley performed really well. Colin Schley's been a darn good college quarterback, and Virginia Tech went out and got him. Like, that was a transfer portal win. They got him ready to play, and he performed well. Malachi Thomas. A lot of people have been talking crap about Malachi Thomas. Can't do it. He played a really good game. He can't pass pro to save his life. He got bull rushed a couple times there, but as a runner and receiver, I thought he had a pretty good game. I thought Felton made some nice catches. Both Gosnells made some nice catches. Coney, he had the bad fumble, but I thought he was really good. A lot of players played really well in this game to lose.
Yeah, I like the line when he's like, some people are more upset than they should be. And the guy's like, if we lose by 3 points, I'm sticking my head in the drywall. Like, it's really funny how different fans watch games and react to games. But I think I went through all of those different ones throughout. I'll ask for your story of the game after the break, Sam.
Mm-hmm.
2D Pokies Under the Influence is brought to you by Jack and Coke. Jack and Coke, 2 legends, 1 can. It's a great drink, guys. It's true. Jack Daniel's Tennessee Whiskey and Coca-Cola or Coca-Cola Zero Sugar is now available in a can in your local grocery and convenience stores. 2 legends, 1 can, Jack and Coke, ready to drink. You can see the can right on your screen. And we're having those cans of Jack and Coke. Please, please, please drink responsibly. So, Sam, what was your story of the game?
I don't know how it can be anything else other than 1-11.
I was just going to say defensive collapse, but
I mean, I don't know how. That is the national story for this game, at least, is the unprecedented level of failure in these close games. It is by far the worst winning percentage in 1-score games by any coach at the FBS or FCS level in recent years. It is worse than Scott Frost at Nebraska at this point. And it is at the point, too, where, unfortunately, it will be one of the defining characteristics of Pry's tenure, because he would have to go on an incredible coaching run in order to make this up, in order to make up 10 games in 1
He needs to have like a Beamer tenure in order to make it up, because it's so insanely statistically improbable.
Yes.
Like, even if you're not a good coach and you screw up in a lot of different ways, which they have as a staff over 3 years, to have this many alone in 3 years and to lose 11 out of 12 is just statistically unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's not like they're all happening against world beater competition either. Like Miami, that's one thing. Vanderbilt, they're a good team, but like Rutgers isn't any good. Rutgers is terrible. This Syracuse team is fine, but they're not great. It's just like this team, those players performed better than a loss. Like those players, like Colin Schlee deserved to win that game.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And you mentioned a couple things about the offense, but Schlee ran the offense really well. 6.32 yards per play. Second best average of the year on the road when he hasn't started in a while. And he was slinging it. As our callers said, a bunch of callers commented and like, wow, Schlee's he's looking pretty good. 16 for 24, 206, a pass TD, 54 yards rushing, and a rush TD. He did what he had to do. And in our preview, Sam, I said, this upcoming game is more about our defense than it is the offense. And I said that not even knowing that Tuten and Drones would be out. And that's still what ended up being what it was about. It was about the defense, not the 31 points. If we are who we think we are, and being a Virginia Tech team that's played solid defense this year, that should be enough to win the game, even on the road.
Yeah, it absolutely should be. And, considering that Syracuse had to do all of that in one half of football, like, it's not like you were going mano a mano with them the whole game. Like that all happened in a blink of an eye. And so I know we don't want to, we could talk here for hours about this game, Pete, but there's a couple of things that I wanted to point out. And while we're talking Colin Schlee and the offense, I'll talk about this. They had a great day. I think 31 points without Tuten, without Drones is a good success. However, there were bad moments of time for this offense that led to allowing this collapse and allowing Syracuse to not only stay in the game, but then come back in the game. And one thing I look at is after Virginia Tech scored the touchdown to go up 14-0, the next 3 drives that Virginia Tech had were 3 punts. They ran 16 plays for 12 yards.
Yeah.
Those were the 3 drives. And then after that, you had the end of half debacle of a drive.
Yes. So are you talking about the end of the second half, right?
So the end of the first half.
End of the first half. Yeah.
That's how the first half ended. So you have
that was the debacle, not the end of the second half, because both end of halves had clock management issues. And if you want to, let's just talk about that briefly. The one at the end of the first half, because they seemed content to go to the locker room, even with 3 timeouts, which I had a little bit of a beef with, because that's just not winning football, but I understand the situation and whatever. Okay. Then they rip off the run. You need to change your mindset. And it seemed like they did. They do the play to Schlee. He ends up having his knee on the ground. Refs are figuring it out. How much time should be on the clock, blah, blah, blah. It looked like there should be 17 seconds left. Pry's talking to the officials, whatever. All of a sudden, we have to play with 7 seconds on the clock. And it seemed like there was a 10-second runoff because of the situation, but we could have used one of our timeouts to prevent that 10-second runoff. Am I right?
Correct. And we did not do that. And I believe what ended up happening was that Pry did not know. This is from how he has described it and kind of his actions. I don't believe he knew that the clock would start on the ref's whistle and not on the snap.
Yeah. So then the clock was running before it snapped, and we didn't use our timeout anyway. But like, why are you not maximizing that 17 seconds to begin with? And that's where he was asked about it in the midweek presser and what information he had. If the information had been presented differently, he might have done it differently. I wasn't sure if he was talking about from the booth, because he mentioned about their clock guy in the booth, whoever that may be, or the refs. And depending on who it is, it becomes a more inexcusable mistake. Yeah. But regardless, it's a massive mistake in a game where you had to go to overtime, and that could have potentially led to a field goal. Yeah. On top of the fact that maybe if they had gotten that to the line and that play quicker, they wouldn't have never reviewed the Schlee knee down play. That was kind of what came to mind. There were so many little things that went wrong that I think if you play that last minute out differently with 3 timeouts, we could have got some freaking points.
Yeah, just an abysmal end of half. A lack of aggression mixed with a lack of preparedness is yielded you 0 points. And that ended up being the difference in the game.
And the worst part of it was, Sam, is that Coney got down to like the 5 or something, like on the last play too.
Had a great run. I mean, he kind of like, they were playing very prevent. So like he did a good job to get down there, but man, it's just another one of those examples of organizationally, Virginia Tech is a bit dysfunctional in these situations. Like they don't really know what to do. They don't know what to do.
They don't have,
unfortunately, it got worse.
If you are a longtime coach in this sport, head coach, you have protocols in place and like, I need my guy here. I need my guy here. What's like a sequence of events, a sequence of people that you talk to in that situation. And it just goes smoothly because you're experienced and you've done it. This is Pry's 3rd year. So that should be in place. And I know like probably if you had a Jerry Kill on staff or someone of that ilk, like this wouldn't happen, but it might. But it seems like this happens to us so often.
This is something that you have to figure out before the game starts. You have to know, all right, if I'm in this situation and I have this many timeouts, what are my play calls? What's my playbook look like? What's my script?
And that's what he said. He has a guy in the booth with the book. That's what he said.
I don't care about the guy in the booth. I need the guy who we're paying millions and millions of dollars to coach the football team to know it.
I know.
That's who I need to know it, Pete.
I know. And that's what Will Stewart talked about this week. He mentioned, and I think Ox tweeted out this blurb, so I'll just talk about it. But basically the fact that like, if you're a 55-year-old coach, and I think Pry might be even a little north of that now, when you're having clock management issues, it's kind of a you have it or you don't kind of thing.
Mhm.
And that's like some people just are adept at certain things and others are not. And I know that certain things I'm just never going to be good at. And I think Pry at this point needs to realize he's never going to be good at this. So you better figure out a way to outsource it and make it efficient because it's costing you football games.
I mean, it is at the point where, and I know only a player with the ball or your quarterback or your head coach can call a timeout, right? Those are the only 3 people who can call a timeout. Like at some point, do you try to like, hey, in this situation, we need like Ron Crook, an experienced offensive coach, needs to like follow him hip to hip and be the one yelling timeout? Like, are we at that point where he needs to be like
somebody does
handled in those situations?
Do it, but like because he has other responsibilities. But yes, someone that's their responsibility.
Ron Crook is the first
experienced
name. He's the only damn experienced coach on the whole staff. And unfortunately, Pete, to segue to this end of the second half, for me it got worse because if they kind of like stumbled their way into a positive situation there at the end of the first half, the way the second half ended in my mind was a complete lack of situational awareness and a complete lack of like mindfulness and understanding of like what needed to be done at which point, because Tech gets the field goal to go up 7. Okay, good. You would have loved a touchdown, put the game away, but hey, field goal, good. We're up 7. We need 1 stop. They have a 15-yard penalty. Syracuse has a 15-yard penalty on like their second play because the Quint Allen spat on an assistant coach of Virginia Tech. And apparently the official didn't care enough to kick him out. And Fran Brown cares more about the marching band than he does disciplining his players. But that's Fran Brown. There you go. It comes from the Georgia program. So it's not surprising that disciplining players isn't what they're into. Anyways, they go 14 plays with a 15-yard penalty, 14 plays, 75 yards in 4 minutes and 47 seconds. And a lot of those were running plays. Why were they running plays? Because they're trying to run down the clock. So they are the last team with the ball. And Brent Pry just sat on the timeouts. Let them run the clock down to 30 seconds. Let them run it down. Fran Brown, in his 8th game as a head football coach, 20 years younger-ish, close to it.
He's a young man.
Played him like a fiddle. Played him like Charlie Daniels playing Devil Went Down to Georgia. Absolutely.
Speaking of Georgia.
Nailed the end of game situation clock management. Syracuse nailed it. And then you sit on those timeouts the whole time. And the object is you want to use those timeouts towards the end on defense because you are not in control of the clock. Syracuse
you can get a first down, stop the clock, you can go out of bounds, you can throw an incomplete pass. Yes, you can do things.
So you just sat on them. Now you have less than 30 seconds left. And you have to go, for John Love to kick within 60 in the dome, you got to be...
You can at least get a try.
Yeah, you need 35, 40 yards in 30 seconds with multiple timeouts. Like, that's doable. That's really doable because they're going to be playing prevent. They're going to let you get at least 20, 25. Like, you're going to have a shot.
Well, we know how this story ends. Come on. Yeah, I get it.
I'm sorry, but like that is awful.
They messed it up.
Awful.
They messed it up. Yeah.
And at the time, I was like, oh, it's okay. But, dude,
no.
Now looking back, because not using the timeouts on defense is worse for me than just letting the clock run out at the end of the half.
I agree. And they did it in the first half and they did it in the second half. And that combines to how many lost points? We don't even know how many lost points that was.
It's 0 field goal attempts. You didn't even attempt one.
Right. So we can shout out Coney for having a great kind of debut. Malachi, he struggled in the beginning, came together. Gosnell continues to be our best wide receiver. He now leads the team in yards. I don't think he leads in receptions, but it's close. Ellie Jennings got a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Pop had to play for a second, handed off a touchdown. Thanks, Pop.
Great handoff.
But the clock management stands out for sure. Let's go to the defense, and we got
one last thing on the clock. There were 2 drives there in the third quarter. Virginia Tech punted, drive only took 40 seconds. And then the next drive was the fumble. That drive only took 2 minutes. So less than 3 minutes for 2 drives. All of those led to Syracuse touchdowns. That's how they had enough time to come back in this game.
Right. They were scoring fast. And it's because our defense really struggled in a variety of different ways. We gave up 28 points in the second half. Their running back, LaQuint Allen, ran for 5.8 yards a carry and had that loogie you're talking about. 121 yards for him. Best game of the season.
By far.
His only game of the season that went over 100 yards, and he had 121. So that's nice. Great job on the rush D. We know that's a problem. Phil Maffa is going to love to see that. We allowed 5.94 yards per play, well above Syracuse's average on the year, and definitely above their ACC average by a decent margin. And that's all, Sam, with us thinking that this was a decent matchup because of our strength at DB. But when you gamble on a tackle and miss to allow them to start to come back, that'll cost your yards per play. That'll cost your pass defense. And then they had some momentum. And we talked about that short passing game in the preview and how it can snowball on you and how they're going to get the ball out quick. Well, we couldn't get pressure on Kyle McCord. We had 1 sack. We had 2 tackles for loss. And that offensive line for them is not a good unit. They've been giving up a ton of sacks. They've been running for a terrible yards per carry. They've been giving up a ton of TFL. And the only person that got a sack was APR, and he had 1. And we had very few other negative plays on them. Yeah. It's a credit to Syracuse, but it's a failure on what we thought was a good matchup. It was a good matchup on paper, and it should have played out that way.
It was for 2.5 quarters. I mean, I thought Aeneas Peoples had a great game. He blew up 2 or 3 different screens. I thought Tech defended the screens very well. I thought Virginia Tech got a little lucky with Syracuse, had some drops here and there, but I thought Tech's defensive backs were playing well. They were playing aggressive. It ended up being Tech was just not ready to stop the run. I think the defensive line was a little bit overly aggressive, didn't really stay in their gaps to defend that run, and that allowed LaQuint Allen to get 5 or 6 yards before he was even touched on some of those carries.
Yep.
And I think we were, towards the end of the game, a little bit
spread running game where you're spread out. And then there's these lanes. It's like Justice Hill used to do for West Virginia.
Yeah. The same RPO killed Virginia Tech the whole game because they were just pinning their ears back, not paying attention. And Kyle McCord read them like a book all game. And for some reason, we were still playing outside leverage on the slot receiver, and he was just slanting every single time. They never adjusted.
That was Pena, right? And then there was Ross Simmons as well, who had
Colorado State transfer. He's really talented. The broadcast, which was abysmal. Not a Tom Brenneman fan on this podcast. We are not a Tom Brenneman podcast. Had no idea who he was. I think he was like 2nd or 1st team All Mountain West last year. Really good player. He's been dealing with injuries. That's why he didn't have a touchdown yet. So they didn't do their homework at all. He's a good player, and they used him well in this game.
So yeah, multiple times this year we've seen bad homework, RPO. It's the same issues that keep reoccurring on this defense, but they all came together in the second half. I will say, besides that play where Mansour went for the tackle and didn't get it, interception, forced fumble, 6 tackles. He had a good game. I
thought he was really good.
He had a good game. Jenkins, 10 tackles. Keller, 9 tackles. We're seeing there are certain aspects of this team all over the field that, gosh, they play well. But it doesn't all coalesce. It doesn't all just work together in harmony, and we don't play the right scheme, and we blitz when we're not supposed to, and we don't blitz when we are supposed to. And these mistakes, they just kept compounding. And then you add the penalties, you add some poor refereeing, and it was terrible, dude. I mean, we already talked about the presser, and I do hear the people in the comments and the calls saying we didn't have our starting QB and we didn't have our stud running back. But I don't want to hide behind the backup QB thing when you have a 21-3 lead. You can't hide behind that. Not when you have that big a lead in the third quarter. It's a bait and switch. It's look over here when your defense failed you over and over and over again. The coaches of that defense failed you to have you in the right positions, to call the right plays. And yes, there were execution problems, but there were so many things that went wrong in that defense.
Over half of Virginia Tech's wins this year are against backup quarterbacks. So I don't want to hear the woes me.
Right. So we have to play our backup quarterback one time.
He does great
as a starter, and he did a great job. Don't belittle his performance by calling him a backup quarterback. Like, that's what that does. Like, oh, we had our backup quarterback. No, he played just as good as Drones, if not better, in that game.
Yeah, he started and won double-digit college football games. I think he's won like 11 college football games as a starter.
It belittles his performance to call him a backup. Like, he started the game and he played really damn well. He's not the one that gave up 5 touchdowns on 6 possessions. I know the defense was tired because maybe the offense, they had the fumble and they couldn't put together as many good drives as they wanted to in the second half. But 5 out of 6, you can't get more than 1 stop in 6 possessions like that, and not even for a field goal. Like, they were all touchdowns. It's crazy. And we asked,
the bend don't break broke.
We asked Rob if he thought this game changed his perspective on the program as a whole. And my answer was like a little, because it's the 1-11. It's the fears we already had. And I also thought, like, this game was so similar to the Boston College game. We just happened to make that play when it counted. Keller got that stop on 4th down. We stopped the bleeding. We didn't get that stop on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it leads into kind of some of the Clemson preview and what I think Virginia Tech needs to do to be somewhat competitive in that game. Unfortunately, though, when you listen to Brent Pry talk in these press conferences, there's a vibe that they're kind of out of ideas at this point in these close losses.
I think he keeps a lot of things close to his vest, but give me your perspective on the process.
Yeah, so I think I felt like a lot of the answers from very basic questions were not what you wanted to hear. Just, again, the organizational function of game day, the way that they're dealing with clock management, the way they're dealing with injuries doesn't seem to be a winning formula. Clearly isn't. They know it isn't, yet I don't see a lot of action to go change those things. And we see the same mistakes over and over again. That's worrisome to me. Like, that is something about this loss was so formulaic for how the losses have gone.
Yep.
It's not a personality. It's not a pattern. It's a personality type thing. Like,
it's our identity right now.
It's Virginia Tech's identity as a program right now. They can blow you out, but if it's a close game, you win. I also think this defense has improved from last year. I think the players are better. I think the scheme is better. I think there are players playing pretty well. They are not good enough to play 60 minutes, though. And I think Virginia Tech schematically, I don't want to say you want to start running the clock really early, but if you're in that situation, I think you cannot snap the ball until there's under 15 seconds on the play clock, because your defense cannot stop this team.
But I push back on that a little bit, because we're not in the SEC. We're playing freaking Syracuse in the first year of a head coach. Like, you shouldn't have to grind the clock like we're a service academy. Like,
it is. That's the situation they're in, though.
But they're only in that because the scheme's not good enough. Like, I just think, like, Chris Marv has very hard conversations ahead of him. Very hard. Because you could put almost all the losses this season on his back. I'm not going to do that, because the offense has failed to play full quarters, multiple quarters in some of these losses. But we've lost every one of these games because the team goes right down the field at the end of the game.
That's true. That's very true.
It's crunch time in all 4 losses, and we cannot stop them.
I agree. The tough conversations that will happen in this offseason, I believe, will be on the defensive side of the ball. I think that's where you have to make those changes. And special teams. I just think, however, that when your defense is not built to stop a team for 60 minutes, they have not done it ever under this tenure.
That's fair.
I think you need to start preparing for that.
Yeah.
There were, like Virginia Tech had a touchdown drive to put them up 28-24. It was 8 plays. It only took 3 minutes and 18 seconds. There's some, like,
let me ask you this.
Got to slow it down a little bit here. Some.
If we have Drones and Tuten in this game.
For Syracuse, you mean?
For Syracuse.
Okay.
Do we win?
They can't play defense.
I don't think we do.
I don't know.
And that's
score more than 31.
Something that we were kind of going back and forth on the thread. Like, well, Tuten wouldn't have fumbled it in that situation. He did fumble it against BC. He did fumble it. Drones did fumble it. Drones hasn't been perfect throwing the football. Like, I'm not sure this result is different, even if our 2-star players play. You can think that it would be, but is it? Like, the defense played so bad in that second half, and we don't know that the game starts like that unless Syracuse doesn't know exactly what to plan for.
Yep.
Because we're playing different players. So I think it's the same result either way. I really do. And we can blame it on the dome, but that's probably too simple. It's fun. It's kind of a fun, quirky thing. And I know you hate it, but like
there were less than you know what the official attendance for this game was? Guess
what was it?
Guess it. 38,454.
And that's there was no way
against
there was 38,000.
Half of them were damn children. Okay.
There's no way there was 38,000.
Stop it with the dome. That's loser talk. If the toughest places for you to play are in Norfolk, Virginia, and Syracuse, Orange, guess what? You wouldn't last a day in the SEC. You wouldn't last a day.
I'm not saying it's easy to play there. It's not easy to play in BC. It's not easy to play on the road anywhere in college football. I know that. It's a weird place. But when you have a 21-3 lead, you should come away with a victory. Let's take a second to talk about our other sponsor, Sam. 2D Pokies Under the Influence is brought to you by Rhoback, the performance activewear designed for those who crave activity. I had my Rhoback on Monday. I love my Rhoback stuff. They've got the official licensed Virginia Tech stuff, but got a fruit fly right here.
I saw that
hovering around my beer. But you can use code 2DVT to get 20% off your Rhoback order. They have so much stuff that's not licensed, that's a little bit more affordable, that you can take an additional 20% off with our code and load up that cart, man. You get the women's stuff, get the joggers, get polo, quarter zip, hoodie, awesome stuff. Use code 2DVT for 20% off your order. Rhoback Crave Activity. Sam, I need to ask what you're drinking. You had 2 cans earlier in the night. One was brown.
We're almost done with this one. So I got a 12-pack mix from Star Hill Brewery. Really, really nice one. They're out of Crozet, Virginia, outside Charlottesville. They have a brewery in Richmond, Scott's Addition. This one that I had first was the Last Leaf. It is a maple brown ale, super awesome can with like the fox, a little bit of like drawing logo, the red maple leaf right there. I'm not a huge brown ale fan, but I am telling myself I'm going to try some darker beers. Oh gosh, sorry about that. Try some darker beers this winter. And it's really good. It's like, it kind of has that bourbon barrel flavor without the bite. So if you want a little bit more of the more like molasses, warm, spiced, it is very sweet. It does kind of have this maple syrup flavor to it with the maple brown ale, but like maple brown sugar. But it doesn't have that bite. Really good. I really like this. This is a 4 for me. I think this is a really good beer. So the Last Leaf Maple Brown Ale from Star Hill Brewery is the first one.
Okay. So that's like on the cusp of fall into winter is what they're saying there. So are you a Newcastle guy? Were you enjoying Newcastle?
Not a huge one.
Okay. I like Newcastle. I do. I love this war that you've been having with your mic tonight. It's been
it's been I don't understand why. It is like
your bass isn't heavy enough.
Yeah, I don't. It's
we're gonna rectify that soon enough because
no one wants to hear what I want to say anyway. And then my second beer is the Festy. It's an Oktoberfest lager from Star Hill. I've had it a few times.
We can talk about it a little bit later. Are you drinking it now?
I'm gonna crack it open. It's a pretty simple Oktoberfest, and I mean that in the best way. Like there's not a lot going on to it. It's just a darn good beer. So Oktoberfest. If you're looking for good Oktoberfest and you find Star Hill, good one.
I am drinking. Some people might recognize this can. I talked about it the other night. It is a Falcon Smash.
Hell yeah.
This is an Aslan probably their most well-known beer, I'd probably say. What's funny, Sam, I was telling you about the dinner. Me and my wife went out to dinner tonight, sat at the bar. They had some nice beers. They had Aslan on tap in the town over from me. It was the No Backsies, which is a Hefeweizen. But I was surprised. I was surprised to see Aslan on tap in New Jersey, but they're getting bigger, man. And the Falcon Smash is phenomenal. Like, good, no notes. Like, it is just, it's a good quality New England IPA. Wait, I'm an idiot. This is from Triple Crossing. I'm so sorry. I got mixed up because of the beer on tap. But yeah, Triple Crossing Falcon Smash. I'm sorry.
Okay, I kind of thought, but I was like, oh, maybe I mixed up. We do love Aslan though.
We do love Aslan. We had our party there, but yeah, it was because I was at the bar earlier. I mixed that up, and I think I mixed it up the other night because I did have an Aslan. But yeah, Triple Crossing. It's weird too because I'm drinking. Literally, you can't see it. Triple Crossing glass. Dude. Don't this week. I mean. I was telling you earlier, Sam, we've had some family stuff going on. It's just been it's been a very interesting week. I apologize to all the beer connoisseurs that are yelling at the screen. I know the Falcon Smash is a great beer. It is from Triple Crossing, which is probably the best brewery in Richmond.
Hot take, but
I'm just like, think about it though. Like, what would be the better one? Like, there's a bunch of really good ones. The Veil is very good.
Veil is my one.
Vassin people like a lot. Ardent, which we did our show from, is excellent.
Yes.
So there's plenty to choose. The Answer Pub is a great little spot that has really good beer. Center of the Universe, a little outside.
Oh,
that one's really. I like the Pocahontas.
The one they have with the Richmond Flying Squirrels. That beer is crushable. It comes in a really cool can. I forget.
And you're drinking Star Hill, so we're very much all Virginia tonight. But I apologize about the Falcon Smash. I'm an idiot. But we'll move on. I'll be an idiot about something else now. The series that hasn't been so favorable. Another one, because we had Syracuse, which I actually said we were under 500 against Syracuse. Well, we're definitely under 500 against Clemson going into this upcoming week. 23-12-1 is what the series is. Clemson's obviously on the winning end of that. We haven't beaten them since 2007, which if you'll remember the 06-07 back-to-back, two of the best games since the new millennium for Virginia Tech against Clemson. They were just phenomenal games. 6 straight losses since. We had won the 5 prior to that. 3 of those losses have come in Blacksburg, and 2 have been in the ACC championship game. There have been some stakes in this series. Haven't played them since 2020 when we lost to them. And I think that was the game where the sprinklers went off and Dax was jumping around. And
maybe, yeah. Yeah, that was the 2021. Yep.
Yes, 2020. That's the last time we played Clemson. But they're coming to our house November 9th, 3:30 on ESPN. They're okay, but they are coming off a loss. They're still in the top 15 in a number of metrics. It's FPI 13, SP plus 15. Lindy's had them at 14 preseason, Steele 13, Athlon 15 all preseason. They're pretty much right there. This is what we expected. Although they looked bad last week, and they looked bad against Georgia. They've been doing well against the bad teams. It's similar to what we've been doing, Sam.
You know, there's a old Daniel Tosh sketch where he's like, or stand-up routine, and he is like, I don't understand people who say they're bad test takers. Oh, you mean you struggle where we find out how much you know? That's kind of how I feel about Clemson this year. Like, they've played 2 good teams, gotten waxed both times. One of them at home and one of them on a neutral field. Like, it was very doom and gloom, that Syracuse talk. But Pete, this Clemson team is not your classic Clemson team, and they're a little beat up on the defensive side of the ball.
They are beat up. There are some injuries that we'll get into. There's been a lot of talk about Dabo in the offseason, right? His inability to adjust to the transfer portal era and take transfers. And his team is worse for it. I think there is little to no doubt about that. Now, one of the areas that we highlighted in the offseason where I thought they'd be hindered was their quarterback. But that really hasn't been the issue. Garrett Riley at the helm of their offense in year 2 has Cade Klubnik playing at a pretty high level. Now, his 2 worst games by far have been the 2 games in question where they played decent teams or, depending on how you view Georgia, an elite team. But Klubnik has exceeded my expectations this year. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a credit to him as a player. I mean, one of those super highly touted guys came in, didn't perform well, has gotten better year over year, and their wide receiver core has gotten a lot better year over year. They were pretty injured last year, so we knew that they were going to have a step up this year. But yeah, for me, it's offensively. I think if you look at the talent that they have on their team, you kind of expect them to be a good offense to this level. Like being a bad offense again would somewhat be as shocking. Equally as shocking as being this good of an offense. For me, it's all about defense. I mean, you allowed 33 to Louisville, who's been a good offense, but has had issues this year. You allow 31 to UVA. They have not played good defense in about a month.
No. And it's funny because I watched a number of their games, whether it was UVA or Wake, NC State, they've already played.
Yep.
That's their best win. NC State's probably their best win, which kind of goes to show you the year they're having. And that's before NC State they've turned it around as of late.
Mm-hmm.
But they just, in the beginning of that Wake game, they struggled. The first half against UVA, unimpressive. And they kind of just get it together and crockpot these teams. Well, they couldn't do that against Louisville. And despite Phil Maffa going for 171, they basically scored a late touchdown to even make that game look decent, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm looking at some of their advanced stats here. They're 32nd in the country defensively and expected points added per rush, 31st in expected points added per drop back, 53rd in echo rate, which measures how many scoring opportunities the opposing team has. What they are really great at, and I will use the word great, is third down and fourth down defense. They're only allowing a 29% success rate on third and fourth down.
Okay.
8th in the country. So they have been, defensively, they haven't been elite, but they have stopped teams on third and fourth down. And I think Virginia Tech, if you're looking on the flip side, Virginia Tech's offense, 87th in the country in third and fourth down success at only 39%. That is a clear advantage to Clemson in a really important area of the game.
Yeah, no, it is. I'm wondering, like, on this offense for them, I look at the matchup and just in the way they've been able to run the ball, that's something that is causing me great strife just looking at this, because they're 11th in the country in yards per carry average. And that's, and like to finish the point on Klubnik too, like he's 10th nationally in QBR. This is a guy who was 67th last year. He's 10th now.
Something that really scares me on Clemson's offense isn't as much their passing game as it is Phil Maffa in that rushing game. And one of the reasons is they'll run Phil Maffa on passing downs. They have the number 1 rush rate over expected in the country. So that means they run the ball more on passing downs than any team in the country. So if it's 3rd and 8 and you're dropping back into coverage or you're pinning your ears back as a defensive end, they'll hand it off to Phil Maffa. And Virginia Tech has not been good in those situations this year.
6.32 yards per carry for Phil Maffa.
That's a lot.
That's if my math is right, that's more than Tuten, I think. Tuten at 5.8. I'm not sure. I'd have to look that up. But yeah, he's had 5 100-yard games, including the 171 against Louisville we mentioned. Their wide receiver group is deep, but it's not elite. Williams is their best guy right now, 35 receptions, 420 yards, but Moore and Wesco have been nice deep threats. Now, both of those guys are banged up. And that's a story for Clemson. You talked about the defensive injuries a little bit, but like they've got some offensive injuries too. Mm-hmm. Stellato, Turner, Randall, like they still got other options. So and Brenningstool, of course, at tight end. So I don't, even know if Moore and Wesco are out, how much that will affect their offensive schematics or even their offensive performance. But it's something to consider. Their offensive line has been good this year. 12th in sacks allowed, 31st in TFL allowed per game, 11th in rush yards per carry, as I said. So they've been playing well. That is a giant problem for our defense because we just gave up, LaQuint Allen's best game of the year. If Phil Maffa goes out and has his best game of the year, like it's going to be 200 yards.
Yeah, it does feel like Tech needs Clemson's offense to make some pretty devastating mistakes in this game.
Yeah.
In order to keep it to a level where Tech can score 30, 35 or something and win the game. Like that's kind of where you're thinking the path to victory. I know we've heard that a lot the last few days, but the path to victory for Virginia Tech is, making Clemson's offense really, really work for it. And then if they make a mistake, you have to penalize them for it. Like if they have a holding penalty on a drive, you got to make them punt. If they throw an interception, you got to score after it because they're going to put up points.
That's what I think.
They're going to put up some points. You have to be able to find a way to keep them under 30, keep them under 35 to give yourself a chance.
I think both teams are going to put up points. And that'll lead us to the Clemson defense because they are 65th in yards per play, 95th in yards per carry against. Now, that is music to my ears, man.
They're a mid defense. I'm not going to lie. Like, they're a mid defense.
Like,
they're very good on 3rd and 4th down, but they're not great.
That explains, like, the good on 3rd and 4th down does explain, like, their record and some of their other stats, but, like, on a per play basis, every year that goes by that Venables isn't there, this defense becomes trash. It's getting worse. Like 65th in yards per play is straight mid. Like that is literally the middle of college football. And 95th in yards per carry works out very well for a team if we have Tuten back and Drones is back healthy. So it's not an elite defense. This used to be a team you could bank on them, like coming in, year out, elite defense. It is not. And if Peter Woods has to miss this game, it's even better for Virginia Tech because he is a playmaker. He's a 315-pound defensive end. Now, I think they would have ended up playing him a little at DT or inside this game because they're missing another DT, but like he's listed as a defensive end at 315.
He's a beast. He's an absolute beast. Like they have dudes. I think this might not be the national champion caliber Clemson. That does not mean they don't have NFL dudes littered all over this starting roster.
Would you say that Barrett Carter, the star linebacker, star in quotes, because I think he's had just a slightly disappointing season.
I'm gonna look up his stats because I haven't.
He doesn't lead them in tackles. He's 3rd. He had a lot of ACC Player of the Year hype, 7 TFL on the season. He is used in an attacking role, I'd say, because he's got 5 hurries. But with Trotter being gone, you expected his production tackle-wise to increase. And it's down. He has less tackles per game than he did a year ago. And you know why? Because Woodaz is a baller. Like, I'm not sure if that's how you say his name, but Woodaz, Woodaz, he's been amazing. He leads the team, 7.5 tackles per game, 6.5 tackles for loss, 7 hurries, 3 forced fumbles, 34 solo.
That's shot 3 forced fumbles.
Yeah.
I think they have guys who can like blow up a play on you. And if you're Virginia Tech and you do a lot of smoke and mirror stuff and you kind of rely on the defense, eyes going one way and then not being able to make it back to another, Clemson has the dudes where if one guy sees that play, they can blow it up because they have that athleticism, they have that IQ, they have that tenacity. So if you're Virginia Tech, I think Bowen has been a little bit more liberal with the trick plays over the last few weeks with the reverses, double passes, things like that. Gotta be a little bit careful against Clemson's athletes for those because you can't have disaster plays offensively.
Another reason that maybe Carter's stats are a little bit down is because of Sammy Brown, the highest rated linebacker to come into Clemson ever, is a true freshman, and he has 3 sacks and 6.5 tackles for loss. Like, he's making an impact as a true freshman because he is that highly touted. So their linebacking core is good. The defensive line, as we said, a little beat up. They got Parker and Woods. If Woods is healthy, he's great. But like, Capehart is hurt at defensive tackle. The inside's a little weak. It's exposable. DB's lost a lot coming into the year, but they've got a lot of talent and experience, and they've racked up 9 interceptions.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a kind of a key to their success this season. And, if you look at, considering how bad the Georgia game went for them and how high powered their offense is, like the fact their defensive numbers are this good, I think has a lot to do with those turnovers.
I think you're right about that for sure. Their safeties have played well. Barnes and Mickens definitely been playing well, putting up tackle numbers. But all that being said, they've got dudes, but I don't think they don't have Venables. They don't have that overarching scheme that is putting all of their players in a premier position to just throttle your offense. And I think both teams are going to score points. I really do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be a higher scoring game than what we've seen in the past few weeks.
And I think it goes without saying that this is the most susceptible Clemson has been.
This is your spot to get Clemson. This is absolutely your spot to beat Clemson. Like, it does not get better than this, because we talked about it a little bit offline, but you do wonder about the mentality of this Clemson team, because they are not in the national championship hunt right now. They could make it to the playoff. They could still win the ACC, but it's a bit of a long shot at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how much is that Clemson program playing for? That's a team that wants to win national titles, and that's their goal. When you kind of take that from them, how locked in are they for this road game? When Wayne Stadium's going to be rocking. It's going to be loud. This is your shot to beat Clemson. It won't get better than this. You will not get a better shot.
No, they're coming off a loss, so maybe and we've talked about this many times throughout the year, picking games. Like, is this a one loss gets you 2? Is this a bounce back? Knowing Dabo Swinney, they're going to be ready to go, but it doesn't mean that they're still not the same quality team they were a week ago, which got taken apart by Jeff Brom and Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
And for Brent Pry, after what just happened in Syracuse, it's not a must win or whatever, but like, this would go such a long way and be a defining win for you.
This would be the kind of win that you can really start to build a program on. Like, this is the kind of win that could make people think like, yeah, you are the guy. You're not just the guy to get us back to relevancy. Like, you're the guy to get us over the hump. And right now, there's not a lot of evidence that Virginia Tech is going to get over the hump anytime soon. And these are the kind of games that, like, Brent Pry was hired to win these games. One of the big reasons Justin Fuente did not work out at Virginia Tech is because he could not win these types of games, especially late in the season.
Yep.
You got to win one eventually, dude. Like, someone's got to win one. And we said it, Pete, we have said it before the season. We said it during the season. It's not a secret. It's a wins and losses business. And if you keep losing, you're not going to have that many more opportunities to win. I mean, if everyone knows that.
Yeah. If they lose, they're 500, and they've got to win 1 out of the last 2 to even go to a bowl. And so it would relieve a little bit of pressure, and maybe even a lot of pressure, because then it's like, oh, they won 3 in a row. The guys were hurt. They lost a heartbreaker, and then they won again. So they've won 4 out of 5. Like, it changes the whole way we will view the Syracuse loss with how this turns out.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's fair or not fair, but like, it's just the way that it is. And so, and even Irby said it, like, not all will be forgiven for last week or for Rutgers or for Vanderbilt or whatever, but a lot will be forgiven.
And it's like, give us something to build on that's not beating Stanford, Georgia Tech's backup quarterback, and Boston College at home.
Tulane, who doesn't have any other players in a bowl game.
Yeah, you have to be able to beat good teams.
Right.
You have to be able to beat good teams at full strength. And
they won't be at full strength, but at the same time, it's Clemson. It's a program. It's a name. They're not a terrible team. They're a decent team. We have not beaten a team under Pry that's as good as this Clemson team. Has not happened.
This would be the best team Virginia Tech has beaten since Ohio State.
UNC 2021, maybe.
Didn't that team go like 500?
I don't know that this team's that much better than that team, but like, I'm just
regardless of where we rank
it would be the best
in
win
the
of the Brent Pry era for sure.
By far. And you're talking about like the last decade of Tech football. It's top 3.
Best, I should say, best team we've beaten. We've had some really dominant wins over bad teams, but best team we've beaten if we are able to win of the Brent Pry era.
Mm-hmm.
And I like our chances. I'm not going to lie.
Their
5 ACC wins, Sam, are against the 5 worst teams in the ACC. Clemson's.
Hokey
according
glasses?
to FPI. Are you
Hokey
taking
glasses? Taking them off?
Orange and maroon on the table.
I think a touchdown is too big of a spread for this game. I think Tech +7. I would maybe hook it to 7.5 if you could.
God. Sam, don't do this.
But I would put it on your car. I wouldn't mortgage the house on it. But if you're playing 15, 16 plays in a weekend, Virginia Tech +7 here does make some sense. I am looking at some models that have Tech as within 1 point and not on the losing side of 1 point. So I would just say I would add it. If you added it to your card, I would tell you it's a good bet, whether it wins or not. I'd tell you at this point it's a good bet.
Okay, so
I'm plus
is there
15
any
units on the year.
is there any world in which Tech wins this game and it's not a 1-score game?
Of course, it's college football. This crap happens all the time.
So a week after Clemson loses by double digits to Louisville, you think they're coming to Blacksburg and losing by double digits again?
I don't think they are, but
so
weird
what
things
I'm
happen
trying
in this sport.
What I'm trying to get at is you think Brent Pry can win a 1-score game?
I don't think he can win a 1-score game. I think he can cover a 1-score game. Those are different things.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Come on, man.
+7. I don't, I like that. And that's why I think it is like, there is some optimism to this matchup, right? Like we've talked about it. There is some optimism and playing at home, and it's a 3:30 game. Place will be hyped.
We know that Tech, when they play at their best, can compete with almost anybody.
Yeah. And I would say like, there are a lot of things that we've seen of this team where we have seen a much higher ceiling than we have seen from Virginia Tech in quite some time.
Yep.
Like we've seen this much higher ceiling. However, the floor is still the floor for, oh my God, what are they doing out there is still there. And for me, I look at this matchup, I look at the spot. Virginia Tech's playing for their lives pretty much at this point.
Yep.
And Clemson is, tail is tucked between their legs right now. I'm just saying, it's there. The opportunity is there. The opportunity is there.
If Pry has aspirations of taking this program big time, I don't want to use the must-win thing because it's really not. It's Clemson. It's an excusable loss. It is, but it's also a very winnable game. And if he wants to take, it's an opportunity. Perfect, Sam. It's an opportunity to start that route to big time. If you want to start it, especially after what we've been through this year already with the 4 close losses, win by 1 score. Show people that stat is irrelevant and that you can get it done. And it would go such a long way. And
it would
not only making everyone happy, but like the belief would be back. I really do think it would bring the hope back and the belief back, because I've been a Pry believer. I've been a Pry gets it guy. I have been, but this season is wearing me down.
It feels like gut punch after gut punch after gut punch. And how many times can this program get back up off the mat? And it's like, part of me is like, I'm so proud of this program for keep getting up. And the other part of me is like terrified that the right hook to the cheek is coming.
Yeah.
And it's like,
it could be a multi-score loss.
Gotta punch back.
And I
Gotta
don't.
punch
And
back.
then we got to go to Duke in 2 weeks, and then who knows? Or it could be a 31-27 win in Blacksburg, best win of the Brent Pry era, and we win out and we go 8-4, and it's an improvement on last year, and the trajectory is still up. Those are the worlds we're living in, and it's another. And Irby said this. It's like he's like, I feel like every weekend it's like this is a defining program win, and it's here we are again. It kind of is.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree.
And maybe we're just too close to it. I don't know, Sam. But let's take some picks while we close this thing out. Miami is going to Georgia Tech this weekend. Georgia Tech plus 11.5. I'm going to take Miami because I don't know the Haynes King status, but I feel like Miami's due for a loss, but that Georgia Tech team, I don't know if they can do it.
Yeah, I don't know if Georgia Tech's defense, like they've had one good performance this year, and it was
Miami is just
they're
shredding
inevitable.
teams.
They're inevitable. Like they are scoring 50 points on bad weeks. I think
highest scoring team in the country.
Yeah, I think they're going to win. I think they're going to win comfortably.
Michigan at Indiana. Indiana in the CFP right now. Michigan very much not in the playoff rankings. Indiana 14.5 point favorites at home against the national champs. What do you got in this one, dude?
You got to go Hoosiers, right? I mean, I can't bet against these guys. They're absolutely shredding people.
I know.
Until
but the hook. The hook got me last week too against Oregon, and you knew about the Oregon, and I was a dummy.
I would say if you're betting it, I would maybe buy the 13.5. However, none of Indiana's games have been remotely close, and they will try to run up the score. So
they will.
Do have that. Like I would say I would either buy the hook at 13.5, or I would move it up to like 16.5.
I'm taking Michigan. I'm
Screw me, right? I'm stupid.
I'm a sucker for pain. That's all it is. No, you made great points.
No,
this is my own idiocy.
They can't win like this forever.
Right. I'm just waiting for like someone to smack them and just like change it up just a little bit. Maryland at Oregon. Huge spread. I put this on here just for fun. Minus 25.5 is Oregon at home. I want to take the Ducks here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not like Maryland couldn't backdoor this thing, though.
That's true. That's true. I'm a little bit worried. Maryland's defense came into the season with a little bit of hype, especially the defensive front seven. They have not been great this year, and they've been a much better team at home. I do think they are offensively, they're pretty turnover prone. If they have like 2 turnovers in this game, it could be like 41-10.
Yeah. I mean, Oregon is unforgiving. They really are.
Yeah, dude, they're a machine. They're a machine.
They are. Bama at LSU. LSU plus 2.5. This is one of the big games of the weekend. Happens to also be on the pick'em. I like Bama.
Yeah, I like Bama too. Running quarterback has killed LSU.
I feel like
there's a mentality issue with LSU, I think.
Maybe a little, for sure. And we think has Bama fixed themselves with the Missouri win. But I feel like everyone's on Bama, and that concerns me.
Alabama is top 10 in EPA per rush and EPA per drop back, both offensively and defensively.
And LSU has a problem with the running defense, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Washington at Penn State. Penn State coming off the tough loss. 13.5 point favorites in Happy Valley. We got a West Coast team going east. I'll take Penn State. I don't love the pick, but I'll take Penn State.
Yeah, that's a really bad travel. Penn State needs to show the committee some style points here. So I could see Penn State having a good performance the week after Ohio State. That makes sense. And Washington is not. They're a year away. Like they're in a bit more of a rebuild than people thought. They lost like 20 guys to the NFL. I think people don't understand how decimated that roster is.
Yeah, the transfer portal, NFL, everything.
Yeah.
All right. I still feel really bad about this. Triple crossing. My apologies. I hope this doesn't hurt any of our future endorsement prospects.
I think it'll be okay considering that you loved the beer that much.
I do love the beer. The beer is awesome. 7% alcohol, New England. It's a perfectly balanced New England. Triple crossing, we love you. I've got your glass here, and I'm sorry. I like Aslan too. We have a soft spot for both of them. All right, make sure you're subscribed on the Sons of Saturday YouTube channel, Sons of Saturday podcast feed, 2 Deep podcast feed. I got a really nice email from Byron Walters on our 2deepvt@gmail.com. It involved a trip to Blacksburg where, and I don't think Byron would mind me sharing, but he was with his son and they were walking just around. They realized they could get into Lane Stadium. So they walked in and they saw Josh Fuga going to practice. And they're like, oh, do you mind if we walk down the tunnel? And he was like, no, just follow me. And it was a really cool story with some sentimental stuff I won't share, but Byron, great story. Thank you for the email. I'll try to get it to Josh because we did have Josh on the show last year.
Yeah, for the national title.
Yes.
Game.
And I do have his contact info and I will forward it along, but he just wanted to shoot it over to Josh and say, hey, thanks. It meant a lot and that kind of thing. So
awesome.
Make sure if you have anything you want to share with us, 2dvt@gmail.com is available. Gonna start using the email address a little bit more. So that's available. Rate, review, subscribe everywhere you can. Spotify would be much appreciated. And until next time, Sam, when we are celebrating perhaps a big program defining win, go Hokies.
Go Hokies.